So hi everyone. While we're dialing in, we're gonna wait till everyone is in for a little bit. And in the meanwhile, as Kasia already started, you can share with us where are you dialing in from. Today I'm gonna be your host and I'm dialing in from Torino, Italy. And we see that Anja is in Berlin, Katia is in Tel Aviv, Alicia is also here in Italy, Zoe is also in Berlin. We have White in Netherlands. We have a little bit, lots of people in Europe, Canada, and the USA. And I think we're still gonna be. Sabes is saying that she's very excited to see David, and I know a lot of people have dialed in and have been waiting even before the event started to listen to David's speech, and we're very excited for that today. And so I think now is enough, maybe enough time for us to start with today's event. I'm gonna be, thank you Anja for sharing the music, and I'm going to be sharing my screen with you guys. But with that, welcome everyone to another edition of Wavemakers Connect, which is a series that we have where we connect awesome individuals that are making waves or want to make waves in their professional and personal lives. With that, I want to start today's meeting by reminding you that leadership is nothing that you're born with. And for today's meeting, we're going to be sharing David Nath's story, as you all know, and you're all here very excited to hear about what they have to say. And David is a person who definitely embodies the idea of authenticity and bringing your whole self into whatever you do, especially your work. And these are principles that we consider super important because we see them as what we call leading superpowers. So before we start with all of that, I want to share with you today's agenda. First, we're going to have a quick intro into what Wavemakers is. If you already know us, this is just a little bit of a refresher. After that, I'm going to hand it over to David, who's going to be talking about intersectionality in the workplace. Very difficult word. And they are going to be explaining to us everything about what this word means. And after that, we're going to have a Q&A and a discussion where we're going to be able to ask them all of the questions. And after that, before we start talking about all of this, I want to introduce myself. My name is Gabriela. I'm Wavemakers Marketing Lead, and I've been working as a marketing and content creator for around 5 years. And it's my firm belief that absolutely everyone can achieve their goals if they tap into their potential. That's the reason why I decided to join an amazing group that is called Wavemakers. And here we have a great digital program that started with the intention of redefining leadership, because we really want to democratize access to leadership education. And we do this by empowering diverse, authentic leaders and leaders to be. Why is it important to redefine leadership, you will ask? First of all, because leadership is not a job title, and it's something that you most likely are not born with, as I said at the beginning. And by that, what we mean is that just being at the C level or being a manager doesn't actually make you an automatic leader. Those are two different things. Second of all, we believe that the leadership image is biased. And by that, what we mean is that lots of time, there's a specific type of dressing and a specific set of looks that a person is expected to have in order to be in a leadership position. And that is something that we definitely want to change. And lastly, because most, not all, but most leadership training is biased. And what we mean by that is that a lot of the leadership trainings out there reinforce the existing leadership stereotypes instead of helping people to find their own ways of leading. And that is what we have been talking about since the beginning. At Waymakers, we believe that everyone has their own leadership superpowers, which means that they have their own way to lead, and also that they have characteristics that they can bring into the table. So there's no one way formula for leadership. And thinking about that, it's important to remember that leadership is about being aware of your strengths, your limitations, and your emotions. And that means that having the courage to show your real self to the world is actually what is behind leading. And we're going to see that our alumni from our program have very interesting ideas, reflections about what they have learned with us. For example, Melanie was able to realize that leaders can be quiet, can be loud, can be vulnerable, or extroverted. Basically, there's not one personality to be a leader. Gerard found out that you cannot lead others if you cannot lead yourself. And it sounds like a very simple logic thing to think. But if you're not able to lead yourself, are you able to actually inspire others to tap into their leadership superpowers, right? And for example, Deepika also became aware of something that she was experiencing that was imposter syndrome, but that she didn't even know existed until she joined Wavemakers. And how we do all that and how we empower all these amazing individuals is through something we call making waves. And we make waves through mainly three things. One, an awesome leadership program that we have designed that is 6 weeks and totally online. Second, through our Wavemakers community of professionals that is constantly growing. And since you're here today, you're also part of it. And finally, through events like the one that we're having here today, where we connect with amazing people and we make wave together. Anya is going to be sharing with you in the chat right now a link so that you can learn more about our 6-week leadership program. And you can also book a call with us if you want to have more information. Talking about the program, there's a lot of people who ask us, so what makes Wavemakers different, right? And something that really makes us different is our method. We call it leading from the inside out, and we have 6 weeks as I was discussing at the beginning. But the important thing is that we have created a program where we talk about interesting topics and skills that are crucial for leaders in the future, right? We are going to help you reconnect with your strength. We're going to help you, for example, think about the unconscious biases that you have, get better communication and negotiation. At the end, this is all gonna sum so that you can end up making your own waves, okay? And the objective of this is that you're gonna be able to design career goals that are totally aligned with who you are and your values. And here you can see, this is one of the exercises that we do at the program, and you see people who make waves in different ways. Up to this point, we have been able to make waves with people from over 30 different countries, and it's definitely a great achievement for us. We want to make sure that you understand that the reason why we're doing this is not only because we need to democratize leadership, but because we're very, very sure that the world needs more diverse, authentic, and amazing leaders like you. And that's the reason why today we have David here with us. I'm going to give you a very, very quick introduction before I give David the floor. And I want to start by saying that today our guest identifies by the pronouns they, them. And they are here to remind us how important it is to bring our entire self into everything we do, especially work, because it's a place where we spend so much time that is sort of a waste of our authenticity if we don't bring our entire selves, right? I was impressed when I talked to David for the first time about all of the changes that they have been able to make in their community and at work in like a very short time, and with what people will think is like common things, but they do represent a lot of change. And I'm very, very excited for you guys to learn from them and hear their story. I know that you're gonna really, really get out of here with a new understanding of a lot of things. And with that, I wanna give David the floor. So David, you can take it from here.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. That was wonderful. I couldn't have put it better myself about the leadership. And what you were doing for in the program regarding leadership and all. I think it's really an amazing work. Now just a little bit of introduction from my end. From there, my name is David Nath. My passport name is Sudip, but people generally know me by David. I'm originally from India, 27 years old. And to be very inclusive over here, as I don't know the audience, I will just describe myself. I have brown skin, I have black eyes, black hair, red beret, and I'm wearing a black dress with a white pearls, which has got a cut in my chest. Also, I will very quickly put some boxes from my end that I am gay. I consider myself as a homosexual, non-binary. Um, I already mentioned about the skin color. I have been diagnosed with ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, very recently. So I consider myself neurodivergent as well. And I have a very big drive from my childhood to break conservative traditionalism. I had to be very careful while choosing those words, is because I really enjoy traditions like Christmas, and something that provides value, but something that doesn't, then it just doesn't work with me. Uh, my childhood, I was born in Kolkata in India. It's a city of around, I think, 11, 12 million. So quite densely populated. I was born in 1995 in a very conservative society, being a single child. And I have gone through a very difficult childhood, through various kinds of abuse, including physical, emotional, as well as sexual. And after that, when I was 20, I decided enough and decided that I will travel to Ireland. So I have been thinking about it since I was 19. I did a lot of research. I come from a middle class family in India, so it's very hard for a person with a middle class family to go abroad because of financial constraint and resources. So I decided to apply for an educational loan. And when I received it, I applied for the universities. I got through the universities. That was not an issue for me. And I just took a plane and I just left the country, left my society, because I felt that I couldn't be my authentic self over there. On September 1st, 2016, at 1:14 p.m., I'll never forget that day. I landed in Dublin, and it was around 15 degrees. And since I came from India, I was shivering a lot. Now you can see me just like wearing shorts when it's 8 degrees. But at that time, I had two jumpers on. I started my master's course in University College Dublin in 2016. That was 1 year course. And then I started my KPMG career since 2017, September. And until now, I am in KPMG. So currently I'm in KPMG, Germany. I moved to Berlin. I stayed in Ireland for 6 years. Then I moved to Berlin in February this year. Really happy to move over here, despite some challenges that I had in the beginning. The first important, so the moving part was one of the first risks that I took and an important milestone of my life, because I learned a lot about myself. And the first thing I learned and I recognized and I realized and I accepted in February 2017 was the fact that I am gay. And I will never forget that day, because 3 weeks before, I went to one of the gay bars. I basically tiptoed inside one of the gay bars, thinking, being very afraid that whether my classmates from the university are going to see me go inside a gay bar. And I literally went inside and I got very overwhelmed. And then I came out and I was like, okay, for today, that is enough. Just the entry point is enough. And slowly, I have been talking with people. I have been starting to accept myself. And after 2 weeks, I was living with a host family. So I came out to them first. I came out to my first best friend in my first friend ever and my first closest and best friend in Dublin. Um, I have a lot of closest friends, and that was my first friend. And I came out to him, and it was really great because everybody was just like, okay. I expected a reaction. I was very annoyed that I didn't get a reaction, but but there it was. The cat is out of the bag, and since my friends know that I'm a very dramatic person, so instead of coming out to a person one by one, I decided that I will come out all at once. So with the help of LGBT.ie in Ireland, which is an organization, and they partnered up with the college so people can share their coming out stories. And I wrote my coming out stories at 2 a.m. in the morning until 5 a.m. And that's how I came out. I think the link has already been shared. So that is already up in the website. So you can go through that. Now comes the other part of my career and of my journey, which is my workplace. In my workplace, I worked as an auditor back in Ireland. Currently, I'm a data scientist in Germany. I joined the Inclusion Diversity Committee in 2018 March, which was built very recently in 2017. So it was only 6 months after it came into existence that I joined the committee. And my idea of joining the committee in the beginning was not to create awareness, actually, was because I was still going through the accepting phase. So for me, it was more about knowing other LGBTQ plus people and making connections. And through the workplace, my through the workplace and my friends back in Dublin, I gained a lot of confidence and esteem within myself because you you can see that how supportive they are in how supportive they are in supporting me being my authentic self. And that was a very important journey in my career. And we, as part of the committee member, I was one of in the committee, I was one of the lowest grades, which was a big thing. Obviously, the committee was quite diverse, but it was very heavily biased towards the management role. So there was me and then one other person who was from the associate role. And I was in my first year and joined KPMG. We started organizing events. I started giving them more ideas, and we started combating all the awareness programs, creating training materials, and everything. One thing that I will mention is in 2018, through a voluntary organization, we participated, all our committee members participated in a workshop, which was basically targeted towards pronouns. And at that time, pronouns were still kind of evolving. They were still a bit new concept over in the society. So that was my first encounter with pronouns. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. In 2020, there was an internal event that was targeted towards the Black Lives Matter movement. And it was a huge step from our company to basically find out the root causes and any discrimination events and how to tackle them. So I was very proud to become one of the people championing the cause. So there were, I think, 21 of us from Irish firm, and there were other people across the entire global because KPMG has a lot of global offices. And through that event, I got in touch and I came across the founder of the Global Pride leadership team in KPMG, which is a voluntary thing as well within KPMG. And I noticed that there was quite a few representations from Europe, from outside Europe, but there wasn't anybody from Ireland. And I realized that by that time, I wanted to further my connection, and I wanted to create more awareness. I really wanted to drive pride throughout KPMG. So I told myself, and I talked with my committee members, and I said that I'm going to present myself as the representative of the committee from the Irish firm. And I did, and I became the first Irish representative from the firm. And it was an absolutely amazing event, amazing milestone in my life, because now I felt that I'm not only creating a difference on a local and a country perspective, but I'm also creating a difference in the global perspective, because I was the bridge between the local and the global. 2020 was a very emotional year for me. I was going through a breakup. I had my exams and I came out to my parents, and that did not go well. We didn't talk for a few months, so I had to go into therapy. And in 2021, throughout the entire year, after my therapy and after everything that I've gone through, that was the time I decided that I want to move and I want to travel. And I decided on Germany. And in April 2021, with the help of the founder, Ricky, who is a wonderful person, we organized the first event which I hosted, which the topic was the importance of gender neutral language and dress code in workplace. And the reason being, a month before, I realized how important language is within our society. And I came across people, and I came across myself questioning my identity and my expression. So a month ago, I was talking with my housemates, and she was putting nail polish on her nails. And from my childhood, I always wanted to wear nail polish, but I struggled with the idea of masculinity, which India being a very male dominant country, I felt that there is a very toxic vibes of masculinity within my society, which is very conservative. It's getting better now, but the time that I was growing up, I always struggled with the idea that I have to be a man and I am not man enough, especially because of the bullying that I went through in during my high school and during my college. I asked my friend, my housemate, to put on nail polish on myself. She put it on one of the nails, and then we proceeded on to the next set of nails. And I was like, I hesitated for a second, and then I was like, okay, it looks good, so let's go on with it. And I went out the next day with the nail polish to the supermarket, being very apprehensive, very anxious. And the person at the till, a very wonderful person, said that, oh, your nail polish looks so good. So this created within me a bit more confidence, and I started going out with nail polish. During that year, I started shifting towards more gender fluidity. So I started wearing heels. I took a photo of one of my best friend's wedding, who is on the magazine, and I'm wearing heels over there, and I wore heels for the first time for 6 hours on stones, taking photos, like 1,000 photos. And then I proceeded to come to the office in August in a dress. And that created a lot of looks, because obviously it's still a very conservative firm. And in the dress code, I will remember that they had it written that men must wear suits and female must wear dresses. And I just went against it. And I had a chat with some management people who were very considerate. I would say I'm very grateful to have very considerate team members. Sometimes they can have different ways of looking things, but that's because the awareness and education is still not there. So I was told in the beginning that, like, what would other people think? What would client think? And the COVID one of the best things that happened is that I started wearing nail polish in front of client calls. I started wearing dresses in front of client calls. And actually, one of them gave me a really good comment saying that they really liked my dress. And I was really, really happy with it. And I shared this with my team members. And one thing, I just decided to put my foot down. That was the first time I really took a risk with my career. And I decided to put my foot down, saying that I'm sorry. I told the director, who is a very close friend of mine, and I said that I cannot change who I am. I'm a very good worker. I'm a very hard worker. And I think I bring a lot to this department, to this company with my abilities. So I will not change my dress. And obviously after that, I noticed that they decided to change the dress policy, and it took out that binary aspect, which I was very happy with. Another thing that also I wanted to tell you is when I moved to Germany, this is something, the language is a barrier for me still, because I'm still learning it. And over here, I have been working with the inclusion diversity lead on training materials and different other topics. But during the summertime, they were sending mails from the leadership team and from the central, like those IT mails and all. And they were always using liebe Kollegin und Kolleginnen. And since I really felt so strongly for myself, because I came out as a non-binary person a few months ago, and I also felt for the other non-binary people, how they must have felt, how excluded they must have felt every single time somebody is using dear male and female colleagues. Now, I don't know much about the German language, but obviously it's one of the gendered languages in the world. Uh, However, a little bit of research showed me that it can easily be avoided by using the double Punkte, which basically is the liebe Kolleg double Punkte innen, which encompasses all the gender identities. And I have noticed that in like pharmacies, sometimes like when they say patientinnen, they say patient and then double Punkte innen to incorporate the entire gender diversity spectrum. So I sent a mail to the entire leadership team, CCing everybody. I was like, to be honest with you, it has been at that point where I do appreciate my career, but creating that awareness and making the safe space is a bit more important for me, because I think I have the skill set, and I felt that, okay, well, I know I'm taking a huge risk, but I have the ability to actually go and work anywhere in this world, in any company. So I sent a mail and I said, and I explained to the inclusion diversity leader, who lent a very good ear to me and who was very appreciative. And within 2 weeks, I explained my idea, and they started changing. So they started changing the salutation. So I was very happy that I could achieve that, that certain, the small, I know it's a small step, but it's a very important step towards achieving equality and inclusivity, because this is something that I've always told people. Diversity is nowadays a bit easily achieved, but inclusivity is the first part that I am trying to focus on a bit more, because even within the non-diverse groups, you can feel excluded. So for example, growing up, I felt excluded, and I was part of that society and that community. So that's one of the things. I wanted to share with you how I feel my career is going to go in terms of my gender fluid approach and my non-binary identity. There have people who have told me that it is going to be difficult for me and challenging for me maybe in the future, and I know that. And because especially I want to go up the career ladder. But one thing I also realized is that that's what the entire Wavemakers team is doing, basically on the leadership point. It's like, I do not want to be the CEO or the director in a company in a very high position if I cannot be who I am. Because for me, being who I am makes more priority than going up the career ladder. And as you again mentioned, it's like being in a management position does not necessarily make you a leader. And even though I do not grow up the career ladder, I still want to consider myself as a leader because there are certain approaches that I'm taking to bring myself and other people and creating a safe space for all of us, because inclusivity is the key word over here. A little bit on the emotional side. In the beginning, it was challenging for me to go into workspaces and to go into the public. I will never forget the day that I walked in heels and I could see people looking. I mean, it has been almost a year and I wear dresses most of the time, and I wear the society defined feminine attires, and I do get a lot of looks. There are some positive looks, there are some negative looks. I also accept the fact that there could be a day where I could be physically hit or physically abused or even emotionally abused. But I told myself that no matter what happens, I am not going to be not I'm not going to be other than who I am. It's something that I have promised myself that if something happens to me, touch wood, then I would rather something happens to me being my authentic self and being happy than not being my authentic self. And sometimes when I go outside still now, I do have a very I do get very anxious. I don't show it because, as you very well know, sometimes you change your posture. So your physical self depends on your emotional self, and your emotional self depends on your physical self. So one of the ways you can overcome anxiety and stress is if you stand upright, and if you sit upright, there are certain ways that you can avoid this, because when you do that, when you are having that Wonder Woman pose, then it feels like you can achieve everything. I'm going to share a very short story before I move on to the identity bit. Yesterday, and this is something that does happen to me every now and then, that yesterday I was sitting in the S-Bahn, which is the train over here, and in Berlin, and I didn't understand what the two men were talking about, but I could see that they were talking about me, and I assumed, but the tone and the way they were looking, that they were laughing at me. And there was a point where I had almost a tiny bit of a panic attack, which sometimes I do have. And I had to calm myself down, close my eyes, calm myself down, count numbers, and tell myself all the good things, all the positive things that I've achieved, and also all the smiles and the good comments that I've received on my outlook. And it can be sometimes very difficult for me to go out in the way it is, but I always have to remind myself that I'm doing it for myself, and I'm also doing it to showcase people, to normalize this behavior, and to remove the stigma that is associated with it. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the non-binary concept, the gender fluid concept. What does it actually mean? And I'm going to share my screen with you. So yes, can everybody see it? Yeah. Okay, great. So this is called the genderbread person, so which has been called after the gingerbread person because it looks like the gingerbreads you make during Christmas time. And it's one of the biggest things that I can use to explain for people who already know and for people who don't know what exactly the entire gender and sex is. So I'm going to go from the simpler parts to the more complicated parts. So first of all, sex, that's very easy. So sex is the physical traits that you were born with. So vagina, penis, sometimes both, and the ones that you were assigned at birth. So basically in the passport. So that's your biological sex. Attraction, that's like whom you feel drawn towards or attracted towards. That could be on a sexual level, romantic level, a combination of both, or in other ways, because there are also asexual or aromantic people. Now, a bit more complicated ones, but still not so complicated, is the gender identity and the expression. So gender identity is how you see yourself, how you perceive yourself. Gender expression is how other people perceive you. So identity is basically you can be born female, but you might identify as a male. So that's when your gender identity comes into play. Now, you can be born female, you can identify yourself as a male, and you can dress in a feminine manner. So that is what the expression is. So one of the biggest examples that I can give is think about non-binary lesbian biological woman who is masculine presenting. So there was a lot of words over there, so I'm going to break it down. So I said biological woman, sex, lesbian, attracted to other female people, identity, which was the non-binary bit, and then expression, because they express themselves in a masculine manner. So I hope that's something that I made it very clear through the genderbread person. So I'm going to keep this over here on the screen while I'm going to talk about the non-binary aspect. So what is non-binary? Simply, it is an umbrella term where the gender identity, so you saw the identity bit, doesn't sit in the male or the female spectrum. So yeah, sorry, I was thinking how else to say it, but there is no other way that I can say it. Basically, one of the examples I give is like if you know the colors, so you have all the colors and then you have black and white. So black is basically from a physics level an absence of all the colors, and white is the presence of all the colors. So it's like you have a gender identity man, and then you have a gender identity woman, and then you have another gender that doesn't fall into this category. You have actually a lot of different gender identities, but they all come under the umbrella term non-binary. So non-binary people can feel sometimes that their gender identity and their experience involves being both a man and a woman, so gender fluid, or they can feel that they are completely outside, so they neither feel male or female. So for example, last year, I was going through this journey, and last year I considered myself as gender fluid. So my pronouns were he, she, they. Few months ago, I changed it to non-binary, so they, them. The reason being, I have a lot of realization, and it's also a journey for me to understand that actually it is true that I do not want to change my assigned sex, but I do not consider myself as a male, even though I have a penis. However, the way I present myself, which is the expression, is very androgynous, very gender fluid, because of the fact that in a society defined terms, you do have shirts and you do have dresses. So I tend to shift between the both. So my expression is more gender fluid, but I do consider myself as a non-binary person, and my assigned sex at birth is male, and I am gay because I am attracted to people who are male as well, male people. So generally, the one of the better words that I try to use is instead of male and female, I try to use male identifying people or female identifying people, because you can then also incorporate the trans and agender and everybody else, So just on top of that, I also wanted to tell you is that just a bit of history, that this concept of a third gender or a tertiary gender identity is not new. It has been there since a lot of time. I mean, there is the concept of two spirits in Native American tribes, and also in a lot of mythological, in the ancient mythology, including in my own religion, which is Hinduism. There are deities, gods, goddesses that can change from one identity, one gender identity to another gender identity, and they can be both at the same time. And anthropologists and historians have also uncovered a lot of paintings in caves and a lot of mythological books and tablets that shows that the third gender did exist, but it was forgotten. And now it is coming up more because we are starting to talk about our emotions and our feelings. It's like, well, I am born a male, but do I feel like a male? And that is the thing that I wanted to focus on over here. One very important topic that I also wanted to share is misgendering. The first advice I'm going to say is, this will sound very strict, is that do not misgender person. Research has shown that people who are misgendered has a higher risk of going through adverse mental health impacts, eating disorders, and even suicides. So LGBTQ plus population has a higher suicide rate. And within the LGBTQ plus population, non-binary people, agender, transgender people have even higher suicide rates. And that's one of the things is, it's because one of the external factors and the internal factors being it's misgendered. I always ask people that, how would you feel? This is an exercise I want you to do. Anybody who is cisgendered person, so the term cisgender means somebody whose sex, so you can see the sex and the gender identity is the same. So if I am born a man and I consider myself a man, then I am a cis male person. So my pronouns would be he, him. So one thing that you always have to consider is that when you are talking to somebody, the way that you normalize the entire pronouns is by asking them instead of assuming. And that was the point of my event back in the last year. I wanted to tell people that it's okay to make mistakes, but I wanted to tell people we can make very small impacts by saying the person rather than man, woman, or police officer, or the teacher, or the spokesperson, and things like that. I know in certain languages it's a bit difficult. However, I do feel that with a little bit of an effort, we can all try and not do this mistake. Because I have had, and I can also talk about myself, but I have had chats with a lot of people, and some people have told me that when they are misgendered, which happens in a often, quite frequently, is they are having panic attack, they're having anxiety, their throat closes, their mind closes, they shake, and there is a lot of adverse effect. So I generally ask cisgender people, if you are a man and if you are already talked all the time as a she, how would you feel? And it's okay to make mistakes, but move forward, learn it, say thank you, move forward, and then do the way it is, because it is not that difficult. Because it's getting towards the time and I've already overspoken, so I'm just going to share one message, is that first of all, 14 July is the International Non-Binary People's Day. So just an information putting out there. And privilege is a big term in our society. It's a big term in LGBTQ plus population, but it's also a big term in our society. So what privilege means is basically what you have that others don't. So everybody has got more privilege than other people. And I always say that it is the responsibility and the duty of a more privileged person to help out and be kind and be empathetic to the person with less privileges. Because I consider myself as gay, I have less privilege than a person who is straight. However, I am a physically able person. So let's say if I have got all the boxes and somebody with the same box and having no hands or legs or is blind, then I am having more privilege than that person. And the reason, in the beginning, if you remember, I explained my attire is to be inclusive towards everybody and towards people who are blind, basically, who doesn't know who I look like. So I'm going to say, I know it's a very frightening sometimes to be who you are, but one thing I learned is that in my society, I have always tried to make myself happy and make other people happy. And what has happened is that I wasn't happy and other people weren't happy. So when I realized that, I had to take other people out of the equation and just focus on myself. So do what makes you happy. And at the end of the day, when people are going to see it, the world is going to adjust. But you do not have to give up who you are for the world to adjust to you, or you do not have to fit into the society. As RuPaul, one of the biggest drag queens, have said that if you feel left out, then you are meant to stand out in the society, not to fit in. Thank you very much for this opportunity and for listening to me.
Thank you, David, for sharing all of this with us. And now, before I open the floor for questions, because I know that we don't have a lot of time to ask them questions, I do want to say that since I met David, I've been making an effort to practice inclusive language, and is something that definitely takes time to rewire in a brain that was raised in Spanish. That is like a very, very non-inclusive language, but definitely is something that I feel we all can make an effort to include in our lives. We're gonna make mistakes, and we're definitely gonna have to apologize a couple of times, but it's something totally worth it. In the meanwhile, you can start leaving your questions in the chat if you have them. You can also mute yourself or raise your hand and ask David the questions that you have. For what I see, Huayra raised her hand. So Huayra, you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, David.
Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry, how do I say your name? Can you please say it?
Huayra.
Huayra. Hi, Huayra.
Yeah. You see, you let me remember when I start to study gender.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine, I study gender in Yemen. I don't know if you know Yemen, very conservative.
Yes, yeah.
And we try to blind or hide the issue that gender means when you are any person just in the childhood or when he born, boys don't give him like boys weapon or cars, and girls give her dolls. So this is like identity from the beginning, that this girl, this is so not will not accept later any this part is we try to hide it because it is not accepted by the community or the Yemen people. But we go to something to let them accept this, what is the meaning of gender, that its roles and responsibilities, that who is qualified, he can, for example, this position, not for male or for woman, but for who is qualified despite the sex, despite the gender, if he is male or male. For example, if it is a mechanical for car, how to maintenance, not necessarily this is just for men. If a girl is or a woman is qualified, she can do this. This is not just exclusive for men. This is the definition for gender to accept by the people. And now I'm here in Western communities or countries. So let me start to tell myself, you have to change gender. You have to go more deep on the meaning of gender. Is that means this is the case?
Yes. So it's like trying to understand basically. So if I understand your question, that whether we are going as a society in the right direction or not by understanding what gender means. Is that your question, right? Yeah. So yes,
because we try to hide the issue that you're born with this sex, but how to so now I have to put in mind that I am not in Yemen. I left Yemen. I am now in Western countries, and I have to wide when I came to talk about gender.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, I have to. People will expect from me more to go to areas that we try to exclude it or to hide it.
Yeah.
When I studied, when we work, when we.
Yes.
Can you advise me what to do? Just advise, because I'm working now as gender volunteer with the Netherlands organizations, and I'm will be like for gender in the Middle East, maybe later. They already started to talk about this, MENA region. What they expect from me and what I have to put in my mind that you are not in Yemen, you are now globally. What to put in consideration? Did you get my concept?
I understand. Yes, I understand, because to be honest with you, well, first of all, thank you very much for asking this question and the realization, because I think the realization is the first part, and the fact that you are asking me the question is a good start for the right towards the right journey. And you also have to understand that I come from India, which is also a very, very conservative country. So when I was growing up, there was a lot of things, even me, male, female. I remember one of the prestigious colleges in India, they send males acceptance letters in blue envelopes, and they send acceptance letters to females in pink envelopes, because they think that. And for me, that's like ridiculous. First of all, it's BS, excuse my language. And I understand the fact that it's very difficult to challenge, but I think I see you as an open person. So be open towards listening to other people. And that's how I changed as well, because even though I am a homosexual and I have all these things, but it was a journey for me. I struggled with my masculinity for my masculinity for 23 years before I finally accepted who I am and the way that I behave. So, and also I had to change a lot of perspectives from my end, not only from an LGBTQ plus perspective, but from other things as well. Since in India as well, like you cannot have a, for example, I never saw a female bus driver, for example, you know, and the first time I saw a female bus driver was in Ireland, and I never thought about it. But so the idea is that when somebody sees it, and then you teach other people. So the kids who are the foundation of a society, they learn from their parents, they learn from the environment, and then they learn from the school. So it's important, and the first place that they will learn is actually the home and then the school. So it's very important for parents to be very aware of this and try to challenge their biases by going into scenarios. I will give you an example on a different note is I didn't have a lot of people who have like different disabilities, let's say different challenges. And I did not understand, like, for example, I actually thought 6 years ago, I encountered a person with autism and I thought the person was very rude. And the thing is that this was a society perceived thing that I thought that the person was rude. So what I did is I started asking myself the question when we had a discussion, and I went and volunteered for an organization which deals with people, with kids with different kind of disabilities. So the point that I'm trying to make is that educate yourself, because that's the only way to learn, and challenge yourself, like what you are doing is actually, does it make sense rational? You know, like as you said that men can do this, women can do that. Is it rational? Like if you put yourself in that question, would you not be able to do it? And if you think about it very logically, then the answer will straight away come to your mind. Don't think about it. I know it's very hard to unlearn everything that you have learned from your childhood, but start putting yourself towards people and start opening yourself towards people who are different than you, because that's how you learn and start educating yourself with like more resources and more knowledge, and just have an open mind. Like it's okay to have a different opinion. I always say it's okay to have a different opinion. Sometimes me and my friends have different opinions, but try to have an open mind and don't come off as like very like somebody who is defensive or attacking, you know, because other people can generally see it, like other people can feel it. I can distinguish between people who are curious and who says a question to me and I can see they're coming from a good place, and I can see people who are very aggressive. I can feel it. So I think you are already going into the right direction by choosing gender studies, by asking me this question. So I would say that whatever path you are going on, continue going, because you are going to learn. I also am learning as well. Like very recently, I learned that the hashtags that people use on Instagram, they are not dyslexic friendly. This was something I learned 2 months ago. And I started capitalizing every word, so to make it more friendly towards people with dyslexia. So does that answer your question? Sorry, you are, yeah.
I will think about it. I will think
Thank
about
you.
it. I will be honest. If I will see difficult to be, I will go to my background, the bachelor, I'm engineer. I will go to the engineering. I will leave the master gender, and if I couldn't, I will see how I will.
Yeah. One of the best ways I say is just talk to people, like talk to as many different people.
I will see how they expect from me.
Yes.
To when I am, for example, they hire me as a gender expert, what they expect from me. I have to think about this and look about this and ask also, because before I thought, no, it's okay. But now you let me like, again.
I know why that is going to be a process for you, but sadly we're getting to the end of the session. And I think this is definitely a topic that can go on and on. And I think David's answer was extremely well put in the best terms. And we want to thank you all for being here, for giving us the chance to share David's story with all of you. We're going to be sharing the recording in case you want to share it with your friends and educate them in all of these topics. And as you know, I'm just going to be pasting again the link in the comments so that you can go and check our leadership program where we're fighting for the same things that David has shared with us today. Once again, thank you for being here. We're sorry to have to cut it short because we know it was a super interesting session, and we hope to have more guests like David in the future where you can come and learn about all of these super important things. Once again, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for giving us your time and your ears. And David, you can see in the chat all of the great things people have to say and the thanks they have for you. Maybe the conversation that you had with Huayra is something that can be completed somewhere else, because I know that David is a super open person that you can ask things, and he will kindly educate you about whatever you want to be educated in. And it is definitely a podcast material, as Kacha is saying. Maybe in the future, we're going to be able to create some material about this and reach more people with this kind of messaging. And again, we're just super grateful to have you all here and for being open to these topics, for asking the questions, and for David to prepare all of this and really educating us and make us understand that this is a change that takes time, but it really matters if you make an effort to start it, right? So thank you all, and it will be all for this session.
Thank you very much, everyone. And if anybody wants to connect, then they can check out my LinkedIn and have questions for me if you want. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
I was like, who's sharing? I know.